and get started because we have a lot of questions that have been submitted, and we want to hopefully get through them. And we've got a bunch of people online, and we want to respect their time and get to it. So first off, thank you. Welcome to the town hall regarding the College of Idaho's reopening plan for the fall semester 2020. My name is Joe Hughes. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications here at the college. I will ask you, if you're not part of the presentation, to please mute your microphone while we go through this to eliminate some of the distractions, and also it can also be helpful to disable your camera to help with the bandwidth of the video call if you're able to do that. Also letting you know that we are recording this session, so if you want to review any of it later, you can. We will post it to our YouTube channel a little bit later. So we appreciate your time and your patience as we've worked through this. Our leadership team is gathered to answer your questions, and we thank you for submitting these questions. I think I've counted almost 30 questions that we're going to try to get through here. So as we introduce each team member, they'll have a few opening comments, and then we will get to your submitted questions. So first of all, let's hear from one of our co-presidents, Jim Everett, with a few words. And I think you're planning on being shorter than Doug Brigham was earlier this afternoon, correct, Jim? There's a bet, right? Oh, Jim, I think you're still on mute. Okay,
I was going to say that may be a first if I'm.
That was going to be very short. Yes, that was going to be very short.
Real short. First of all, I want to join Joe and everyone in welcoming you. We're excited. It's been a challenging time, as we all know, but we're really optimistic about the fall and what it'll look like. And we hope that you get a sense today of kind of this small, close-knit family that we are at the College of Idaho. We actually enjoy each other's company. We love students. We've got at least one student on, current student, and we know our students. And whether we're online, which we will be to start with, or in person, it's important to us that we develop those relationships and the outside of the classroom experience. So we're going to find creative ways to do that. I want to talk a little bit about the process we went through. We put together immediately when this hit, we put together 5 task forces involving students, faculty, outside experts, and have worked on this all summer. As recently as a month ago, we were pretty confident we could come back to in-person classes, but based on the science, the evidence, the conditions in our area, we decided that online is the best thing. And what guided us through all this is attention to the health and well-being of our campus community, particularly our students. So that guided our decisions, along with providing the best possible educational experience for you. So we pivoted last spring on a dime, and I think this isn't going to be your regular online education. It's going to be intimate. It's not, you're still going to be in small classes. You're going to get to know your professors and your classmates. We're going to have to work on it and be creative, but we learned a lot last spring and have continued to learn over the summer. It's also, we want to provide you with some choices here. So you'll hear more about that, ask questions. We are certainly not the main event. So I do want to be brief and just reiterate our thanks and our optimism. Challenge brings opportunity, and we're gonna make the most out of this. And when we get to the other side, we're going to be better, stronger, and have learned some things. So again, thanks for choosing the College of Idaho. Turn it back to you, Joe.
Thank you very much, Jim. I want to toss it next to our Dean of Faculty, our Vice President of Academic Affairs, David Douglas, and his band of faculty just went to heroic lengths in the spring when we really turned on a dime, and to see some of the efforts that our faculty went to deliver an online education when they weren't maybe as prepared for it as we are going into this fall semester. David, would you have a few words?
Thanks, Joe. And fair to say, were any of us prepared, right? And so I have so much I'd like to say about that now that you mention it. But I think that the last thing you said is the important one. We see this coming. We know what's happening this fall as much as can be known. And we are following closely, of course, the biomedical advice and the spread of COVID and monitoring conditions on campus, of course. All of that. Really, what I had in mind to say Just a couple of words about the nature of the work that I do at the college and why that's relevant to the students and any family members who might be listening. And of course, everything we say this moment is also by way of getting to responses to your questions. So the first thing is, as Dean of Faculty, my primary job is to ensure the quality of your educational experience, the quality of the faculty we hire and train and retain. Everything that goes on in the for-credit side of the house is in my world. And the questions that keep me up at night are, what does an educated person need to know? What does an educated person do? Is it a noun or a verb? And so I fixate on this and have always. And when you come to the college, anything you have to do with the faculty or the curriculum in the classroom, boy, I want to know about it. And of course, obviously, any concerns or shortfalls, but also information. Stop by to say hello, which actually leads me to a more important and I think deeper rooted point, which is the nature of the educational enterprise at the College of Idaho. You must know by now is deeply personal and deeply humane. Information only matters if it's relevant to you. And the only way it can become relevant to you is if we know who you are, know something about you. And so the philosophy that we engage in the teaching and learning enterprise at the college, first of all, is that it's reciprocal, that the faculty are also students. They were students all the way through their degrees, the undergraduate and graduate degrees that they've all earned. But equally important over the course of their careers, they remain current. They continue to write, to perform, to create art, whatever their discipline or vocation is. They're actively engaged in it. And so they're doing what they teach. They don't stop when they graduate from college the last time. And in fact, the philosophy that I've espoused with them is that every class, every course is autobiographical. It inscribes in your experience as a student who they are as a teacher. And so it's never enough to phone it in, and it's never going to be enough to record some Teams or Zoom lecture and then say, hey, you know what, just go watch that on your own. As the president said, this is not going to be your average online experience. The College of Idaho is distinctive in so many ways, and we are doubling down on our values. And our values involve pushing the circle outward, inclusivity, engagement, intellectual development, excellence, for which we strive every day. And so we're doing our very best to translate that into an online format. And thus, you can expect to meet with your classes at least once every week, that is live and synchronously. And as the stages of reopening allow, the possibility is there for us to start having in-person meetings as it becomes safer as the semester wears on. We'll continue to monitor that and, of course, keep you well informed. So that's the kind of foundation work, the philosophy or principles that guide our educational enterprise. I also wanted to say something a little more technical about what you can expect to see in terms of literally IT. We utilize two platforms here at the college, and they served us well prior to the pandemic and certainly saw us through the spring semester after the pandemic broke. And going into the fall, I think that we've learned to utilize those much more effectively, perhaps in some cases. I don't want to say that some faculty were effectively the functional equivalent of those folks who have the 12 o'clock flashing indefinitely on their VCR, but they may not have leveraged the full possibilities of our IT platforms in the ways that they might have, in the ways that they know how to now. So the whole group has come up to speed. The two platforms are Canvas, which is our course management system, our CMS. And it's, like so many others, it's like Blackboard or Moodle, Sakai, all different variations on the same theme. And it serves, Canvas does, it serves as a repository for the syllabus and the schedule and the course materials. So it's a one-stop shop. You can go there and find your materials. And many faculty members also use it for you to upload materials, to turn in your essays, to make announcements. And many as well use the Gradebook function, so you can readily click on your grades and see where you stand at any point in the term. The second of the two platforms is a collaboration software platform. And that's Microsoft Teams, which is actually the platform we're using right now. And just as Canvas is very similar to many other kinds of CMSs, Teams, if you're not familiar with it, is very much like Zoom, Instagram streaming, all the other ways of Skype, all the other platforms you may be familiar with or used previously. So those are going to be the two that we're using across cases, one for documentation up and down, and the other for collaboration, live meetings, and breakout groups of one type or another. I think that's all I had in mind to say. Other than I will say this over and over with apologies in advance. We're just so thrilled to see you. Summer is an endless waiting period for us because of our anticipation to have you back on campus. And this semester, this coming fall, will be virtually for most of you. But nonetheless, we're just so delighted to engage you. And we couldn't be more grateful that you've elected to join us here at the College of Idaho in this brilliant intellectual enterprise that we share. Thanks very much, Joe.
Great, thank you, David, and kudos for referencing a VCR in your opening comments.
Yeah, it's a device, a technical piece of equipment. I'll explain later. You not remember.
Oh yes. Also from our leadership team with us on the video call is Paul Benyon, our Vice President of Student Affairs and Dean of Students. Also has been doing heroic work and putting together our plan to come back onto campus and has a few words on the student life and the student experience standpoint as we do this, as we start this online and hopefully work back into more in person.
All right, thanks, Joe, and thank you, David. I think we're out of time, so I hope you enjoyed the session today. But and David, you didn't introduce your friend, your colleague next to you.
Oh, Fred. Oh, I'm so
right
sorry.
shoulder. Yes.
I should have said something about Fred. Yes, Fred's masked up in the best COVID safety precautionary measures, and he's a frequent user of disinfectant as well. That's Fred.
All right. Well, as Joe said, I'm Paul Benyon, and we sometimes like to refer, or David, I should say, likes to refer to the two of us as Dean of the Day and Dean of the Night. So I don't know who's who, but it's I just want to echo everybody else, and it's an honor to have you all here and have the opportunity to share our plans with you and answer as many questions as we can. It's part of who, not part of who we are. We are a residential liberal arts institution, and that's extremely important to us. And at the heart of that, obviously, is your intellectual development, our students' intellectual development. But along that journey, we're also just as attentive to your personal, professional, social, spiritual, your whole identity development. And a lot of that takes place outside the classroom, certainly in concert with what's happening in the classroom, but outside of it as well. And again, we take that very seriously. So as we move forward, I guess I just want to affirm that we are as committed on the co-curricular side of things as we are in the curricular to make sure that you're living into our mission. That whether you're on campus or online, we are going to do everything we can to make sure that that you have these enriching experiences intellectually and personally. And we've been working very hard on how we can best do that for you. And our intent and everybody's intent is that, with good safety precautions in place, we can begin to move through these phases and move back to a relative normal stage of operation, if not later in the semester, then we hope by the spring. Which brings me then to our social compact. And if you haven't yet, when you go to fill out an application to live on campus, and if you are to come on campus, even if you're not living on campus at some point, and all of our employees, we've outlined requirements, expectations for behavior that are along the lines I just talked about, empirically supported ways that we can make sure that we mitigate the community spread and try and keep everybody safe so that we can move forward as quickly as possible through these stages. So it's our YOPFAM Social Compact, and for short, we call it our YOP Pact. So please take some time to review that. Certainly by accepting the live on campus, you are accepting and essentially kind of your adherence to these conditions in the YOP Pact. It also has some videos embedded in it, which I think you'll find entertaining and interesting. One from our Res Life staff that'll kind of give you a sense of how campus might look, and one from our ASCI student government about wearing masks. So please take a look at that. That's important to us. So we look forward to engaging all of you, whether you end up on campus or off campus, and meeting all of you in person as soon as we are able. So thank you for taking the time to be with us.
Great. Thank you for those comments, Paul. Also with us from our leadership team is our Director of Residence Life, our Associate Dean of Student Affairs. You probably have already had some interactions with her, Jen Nelson, and nobody is any more dedicated to that co-curricular activities and making the student life as good as it possibly can be than Jen is. And so she's here to say a few words about the residency for those who opt in to live on campus, and she'll also be working with those who are living off campus as well.
Thanks so much, Joe. And let me just start by saying thank you to everyone, all the parents and students and everyone I have talked with over the last few weeks that has flexed so much and been so gracious. I'm just, yeah, it's a real honor to work with everyone. So I thank you for that to start off with. So in our residential community, we are always balancing the wellness of all of our residents and our staff and face-to-face experiences. And this year, we're also balancing that with kind of this new reality that we're all living in. And so I'm excited that there's the opportunity that our students have the opportunity to live on campus this year, but do so in a way that that I think mitigates a lot of risk and can help students really take ownership over their own experience. And I think it's really the best of all possible worlds. So for the students that are on campus, we'll have RAs like we always do, resident assistants. We have a number of activities planned. We're already talking about virtual dance parties and virtual sing-alongs, little like a make your own campfire, and we'll bring you craft materials to do that. It's not a real fire, but something with little sparkly lights. And we have lots of other activities that we already have planned that we will be rolling out once students move on campus. We will have our RAs check in with residents in this format, in the Teams format, virtually regularly, as well as get together in person and get to know people on their floor in person, in small groups and small cohort groups, and while paying attention to physical distancing. So we're excited for the new challenge that this is going to bring us.
Fantastic, Jen. Thank you very much for that. Also on the line with us, or on the chat with us, and he's actually, you're going to hear from him next, because I teed him off that he's going to be getting the first 3 questions that we have in the category of, we put them into different categories. And the first one we're going to get to, and again, we've got like 30 questions to get to, is the reopening plan, the phases that we're going to go through. And that person is Brian Bava, our Vice President of Enrollment Management. And so let's get right to it. Let's get to the questions that have been submitted already for the session. And Brian, first question is, will we still be able to meet with staff and financial aid?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to recognize that, we're starting in phase 2 of those phases. The college is open. Our offices are open, and we are having some physical distancing and some de-densifying in different offices on campus, but you would have the opportunity to meet with staff, not just in financial aid or the admission office, but across campus as well. And the other thing too is, if it's possible, or even if it's makes you more comfortable, you have the option of setting up and scheduling meetings via Teams, just like we're doing now. So one-on-one meetings with someone in financial aid or advising or Res Life or whatever it might be. So definitely take advantage of that as well. But yes, we'll be open and operational and excited to meet with folks.
Let me point out that there is a chat function here alongside Teams, and so if you're not hearing your question answered, but it likely is coming up if it's been pre-submitted, but if there are additional ones that maybe we might have time to get to, please put those on there. Also, we have some enrollment staff who might be able to answer it within the chat itself right there. Also, let me just point out too, at our website, collegeofidaho.edu, there's a big banner across the top that can take you right to all the updates, the YOT pack, everything like that. If you just click on that banner, it takes us all to the fall 2020 reopening updates, and those documents, those links to those videos, those are all located there, and including a frequently asked questions document there that you may find things that we don't cover here are covered in there. And so please take advantage of that as well. Next question, Brian, is it smart to defer college until next year when college is back to normal, instead of paying all the money that would have been for a normal year, but instead is online? And then in addition to that, if that is the better choice, how do we defer, and will we keep our scholarships if deferred?
Yeah, great question. I'll start with the end of that question. I mean, if you decide that it's in your best interest to defer for a semester or for a year, you just need to work with your admission counselor. There's a defer form that you fill out, and we can process that on our end. But to the first part of the question, whether you should defer or not, my question to the student would be, what are you going to do during that semester or year that's going to be meaningful, that keep you up to speed academically? Will there be a professional opportunity? You don't want to lose any momentum you might have going into the academic year and starting your freshman year in particular. And so really, decide what you're going to be doing during that time. I think, David, Paul, and others have said, this is not going to be a typical online experience. And our hope is that as we go through the phases here throughout the fall, we will have some of those protocols relax, more opportunities for engagement and interaction, not just in the residence halls and community, but also in the classroom. So, I would take a real hard look at what you would be doing in that interim period and whether or not it will be more beneficial for you to still be on campus and part of our community and involved in classes. If you, like I said, if you do defer, there is that process, and the scholarships do follow you, into that next semester.
Very good, Brian. Thank you for that detailed answer. The third question I wanted to send your way as well is, what happens with work-study programs when people are staying home?
Yeah, great question also. And we're actually diving right into this. We've had a couple of meetings this week, and we feel pretty confident that we'll be able to offer a combination of work-study opportunities that can be done in a virtual and remote environment. So stay tuned for information about that. But there will be some opportunities. We're just working right now on identifying all of those options and having them available for students when we start the year.
Okay, Brian, thank you. Next question, I think I'm going to direct this one to David. David Douglas, what if cases increase and do not allow for the phases to progress between phases?
Right. Well, by definition, we would remain in phase 2, which is the phase in which we're currently planning to open. And that has full measures of safety installed, social distancing, obviously masks required for anybody who's residing on campus. But for the rest of the students, all classes are online. And so really, it just means that we wouldn't progress any further through the stages at this moment. We'd remain safe and sound. I have a great deal more to add to Brian's comments, which I strongly applaud, regarding the decision to be rendered about whether
Sure.
one would take a deferral or not. And I'm smiling because I'm well aware that my impulses line up with my desire to see all the students here. So I'll just get that out in front. I want to be transparent about that. I loathe the fact that some among you might take a semester off. But here's part of it for me. This is an historic moment. You've heard the old saw about every generation has a catalyzing event of some kind, whether it's 9/11 or the Challenger disaster or a major war, that there is, even though every person may not experience that in the same way, nonetheless, there typically is conceived to be this kind of a generational moment that helps define, challenge, identify, that everybody knows it and reacts to it in some fashions. And of course, that's true no less of literature and film and so many things that constitute culture. At this moment, I've gone back and I've looked at the college archival materials on the Spanish flu of 1918 and learned what it must have been like by reading the accounts at that time of the effect of that horrible pandemic on families, on the community here in Caldwell, how the college reacted, how the college was asked to serve as a kind of infirmary for the town. And the point is that I don't personally intend to sit on a couch during this pandemic, not because I want to expose myself or my family to illness, but rather this is that tectonic plate shift. This is a defining moment in human history. And I think that it's incumbent on us to bear witness to it. And not least, we are encouraging the faculty to not just do business as usual, of course they can in terms of going online, but also to turn their academic gaze as much as can be done on this moment. Just today, I've engaged faculty in the possibilities. One of the top epidemiologists in the state sits on the governor's advisory board, and also for many, many years worked at the CDC's, has been advising the college in terms of biomedical advice. She says, by the way, I would love to work with a group of faculty and students to do some original research on the pandemic on campus, not on the breaking out. We hope we don't have any cases on campus, but rather on our success in the social compact, in vaccinations when they are available, in monitoring symptoms, on the process of educating our students, and similarly I've already heard from one of our history faculty members who's talking about she is going to encourage her students to turn their historical gaze and those sensibilities of primary research, interview skills, documentation on the unfolding events that we have in front of us. So my point is, colleges and libraries are not supposed to be things, dusty, dry, quiet places on a shelf. You don't do anything active. These are places of active learning, and they are all the more relevant this moment given what's in front of us. So again, I've already showed my hand, but I for one, I hope that you join us, and I hope that this is a thrilling and exciting semester, no matter where you are. The possibilities of engaging in this intellectual community in the midst of such a crucial time in our lives, it's incomparable.
Thanks for adding that additional, going back to the other answer as well. I appreciate that, David. Our next question we're going to send to Paul Benyon. And the question, and it references the CDC eventually in it as well. If the school is requiring negative COVID-19 tests prior to students returning to campus, is there testing available on campus? And they do add in the state of California, where this, I'm assuming, is originating, not easily eligible for tests if they have no symptoms and have been isolating. So Paul, and
it's an excellent question. So we recognize that the availability of tests vary widely depending on where you're at and what's going on. And certainly we also recognize that often you do have to be symptomatic in order to obtain a test. So it is still something we're recommending, and only because if possible, we're not requiring it, but if possible, because if it keeps even a handful of students from coming on campus and arriving on campus and then having to isolate already as soon as they get here, then it might be worth it. The CDC doesn't necessarily recommend it. They said there hasn't been enough testing to really ascertain its efficacy. And so they focus, just as our experts on campus and off campus, the health experts we've been working with, have continued to communicate. We should just assume that everybody on campus is positive. And then you engage in behaviors accordingly. So if you're wearing masks, if everybody's wearing masks, if everybody's physically distancing as much as possible, good hygiene, all those sorts of things, you can keep from getting it and keep from spreading it. And that's the most effective tool we have right now. So we recognize that you might not be able to get it, so we're not requiring it. If we're recommending it, if you can, and we will be focusing on the preventative measures, the symptom checking and all that stuff, reporting of symptoms. We have an online reporting form so people can report symptoms, and which kicks off our COVID response team, who then can assist with any sort of isolation or quarantine needs that we might have.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul, for taking that question. We're going to switch to some questions now, or move on to some questions now that were more in the academic vein of questions. And so a lot of these will be directed to you, David Douglas. First one on the list: how will you ensure the quality of education is worth the tuition cost with an online only format? So fair question.
Yeah. Well, through Lloyd's of London, of course, the premier insurance company. Well, how else would we do this? We're the best. We go to the best. So, in fact, ensuring the quality of education is. I want to know who asked it so I can get at you. Like, we need to talk. As if education were a bag of rice or a television that you're buying. I understand a consumer product. You can talk about it in terms of quality metrics. How long will it last? How clear is the picture? Is it first crop rice, right? I have special issues. I have like rice issues in my whole family, including sticky rice, which I would be glad to chat about with anybody at any time. But to the point this moment, education is a process of your transformation. I don't want to put it in crass terms, but you are the product, right? So as anyone asks, will the quality of education be up to par? Will it be, worth what I'm paying? In a way, that's asking the question, will I be transformed? Will I be transformed in the same manner or as much as I would have been had there been no online education or no pandemic? And of course, that's a question that I don't think it's possible to answer. I guess I can say that I think the potential, the possibilities of educational transformation remain intact over the course of this semester. And I'd also encourage you to conceive of this as the first step in your educational journey. This is the first of 8 different semesters. And I think we all have great optimism and hope that a vaccine will be available, that COVID will have run its course, that we'll be able to return in person in the more conventional fashion in the middle of January. And in any case, whatever the time frame, we will be marching as quickly as we can back to the in-person experience. And so this cohort, this class that's entering in the fall, will be unique. I mean, not just since 1891 when the College of Idaho first opened, but unique in the history of education going back to 5th century Athens and the Grove Academus or the Lyceum, the schools organized by Aristotle and Plato. I can't speak with firsthand information. I wasn't there. I'm not quite that old. I'm no President Everett, but we can perhaps ask Jim to speak to that a little bit later. But this minute, what I can assure you of is there will be transformative educational opportunities for you here at the College of Idaho in your online education. And what you will come to us in person with is the experience of that first transformative semester, having earned your relationships with your peers, with your faculty, with your administrators. And kidding completely aside, really completely aside, you don't know what waits you here. This is a place where we want to get to know you. And you'll have even virtual coffee, lunch chats with our presidents, with our administrators, if you should deem to and be interested in that. I don't assume, but that's the nature. And I look back on my own education without carrying on too long about it. I had a great education. I'm a product of big state land grant schools, 400 or 500 people in all of my introductory classes. I found my way to a mentor. That made all the difference to me. That experience of having somebody to whom I was accountable, who pulled me through my educational experience, got more work out of me than I thought I could do. We're still in contact to this day. Hal Boken, I write to him a few times a year, and he chides me for not keeping better contact. That's what I want for each of you. I want that kind of intimate connection with a mentor who is interested in you, looks out for you, advises you, has the earned wisdom of many years and a lot of scar tissue. And again, in loco parentis, they take you under their wing as part of a member of the Yote fam. So that's, I don't think those things change because we've gone online. I think that it may change the nature of our ability to communicate with each other. But as the presidents have pointed out, and all of us have experienced, in some cases, it's actually, it's a greater advantage. We can get at each other one-on-one easily at any time of the day or night that's convenient for both of us. And so we pay a price, but we also get some things out of that as well. Joe.
Very good, David. Next question. How or what are classes going to look like? What are they going to look like?
Well, I'll answer that. I'm just noting that President Everett said that he's still listening. So apologies for that. Thought maybe Jim had checked out. And he says he called him Airy, by the way. So Aristotle,
Airy
on first name
short.
basis. Yes, he and Plato were great mentors. So thank you, Jim.
Of course.
So in terms of what a class is going to look like, every class will meet synchronously, as I've indicated before, at least once a week. You'll be meeting with your class and your professor live. That is, everybody will be present virtually at the same time. And so it won't be the case that you'll have an asynchronous class. You just click on demand and listen to some pre-recorded lecture. We are doing our best to flip some of the content so that you don't waste your time together just listening to the professor speak, even live. There will be some of that, I'm confident, and the better lecturers among us, can really pull that off by engaging students and asking for feedback and questions as they go, maintaining your engagement. But at the same time, we're really encouraging them to push that material off onto synchronous. You can pull that down online anytime you want. We want to use our time together to talk, to ask questions, get to know each other, and really make the most of that time that we share, all at once. So the classes will also be plural. They will be varied, I guarantee you. Every professor has been lent autonomy to figure out what suits them best, their teaching style, their content curriculum, their physical facilities. And one of our renowned Socratic dialogical instructors, Carrie Hunter, who did know Plato firsthand. Carrie has been around forever, and he is a Platonist, as it turns out, a member of our political economy department. Carrie, he's going to be teaching from his regular classroom with a webcam there, and he feels comfortable in that space. It'll be an empty classroom in phase 2, but he's going to be up there in front of that class using the whiteboard, speaking to you over his camera with the mic, and then you'll engage him in the computer screen. Other cases look quite different than that. And as I say, more variations than I have fingers and toes. But so you can look forward to a bit of a wild ride, but certainly it'll be varied according to the professor and their indications.
David, will the times already assigned for the classes be the same online?
Yeah, almost invariably. A few professors are seeking to consolidate. Maybe they had 2 class sessions a week, and they're saying this is, I hate to say it out loud, but they're saying this is great. It's a chance for me. My pedagogy really needs that 3-hour block, and I'm going to go schedule it from 4 to 7 or some such thing. I'm trying to keep that in check because I think that challenges other program opportunities that Dean Bennion was talking about, your co-curricular opportunities. But so for the most part, yes, the time schedule will be the time schedule to ensure that the classes don't step on each other, run up each other's heels in terms of the overall schedule.
David, this next question comes up quite a bit. How will labs work?
Again, varied. I don't know if anybody's using Sniffy, the virtual rat, for animal training in this particular semester, but you will certainly see in some lab cases virtual labs, online labs, where you can reproduce lab experience, but do so in a virtual medium. And in other cases, I know that Professor Databay, one of our distinguished chemists, is actually boxing and sending out materials to the students in her class so that they can conduct experiments at home. And so I think everything in between. We're expecting to see a wide range depending on the nature of the work and the outcomes that are attached to the class. What are they trying to help you do, learn, know, if it's skill set, if it's knowledge base, and then they're fitting their pedagogy and their materials to suit. And of course, going forward, if we progress through the phases of reopening, we're expecting to see small numbers of opportunities for students to get back into the lab. And again, double down on that relationship that they've built with their faculty mentors.
Next question is one I had not heard before. I find it to be interesting because we seem to be working around all the workarounds that going online forces us to sort of undertake. The question is, what are the benefits of the online program?
Well, you've heard that old phrase that, the student has become the master. I fancy that in some cases, the students will be more adept with the technology than the faculty. I'm not speaking bad of my own faculty. I'm just saying that your Facebook page may be completely up to date. That who has not among us learned that if you turn off your camera, you have the opportunity to multitask. And that is modern life, recognizing that people have the capacity, the mental capacity to do multiple things at once. I think that the faculty in some cases, watching 1 or 2 of my more advanced faculty members use the chat and the video at the same time is a bit, like this. So you'll have a leg up. You are digital natives. So just think of it as, you are in your medium and they may barely be keeping their head above water. You can have the dignity and honor of being more proficient, explaining how to break out in, particular chat groups or utilize the functions of posting online or some such thing. That's obviously almost entirely in jest, but not entirely. I think that it's a discerning question in the sense that I hinted at it a little bit earlier in one of my longish answers. There are some advantages. That is, for those who, for example, may be a little reticent to speak, the chat actually offers this terrific alternative method to really get your chops, get your shots in, and your questions, your comments, and do so in a way that if you're more comfortable in text, that it feels less exposed, right? Similarly, I think that the faculty members are going to be more assertive in their outreach. They're very likely to set up some advanced structure by which if they're going to call on you in rotation. And in some cases, they may even rotate you through smaller groups of presence and meet with the smaller groups individually, so you'll have even more scaled intimacy of opportunity to speak with them. I'm also encouraging them, and many of them are committing to holding not office hours, but student hours, setting up Teams meetings that they're just going to have open, and they'll be working on grading or anything else they may be doing. And all you need to do is click on Teams, and there they are. You don't have to leave your residence hall, or for those transfer students who might be living, off campus, it's convenient, right? So the click of a button takes you right to your faculty member, and there they are on the screen, and you have a chance to chat with them about any particular issue. And I would only add as a footnote, all the other resources remain available to you. We'll have the student peer tutors available to you. We'll have the library services online available to you through Christine Schutz. All the other opportunities, the support services that we normally have will be, converted into and available to you via online. So I think in some ways the convenience of just being able to sit at your computer and click through these folks and get hold of us at a moment's notice is actually an advantage.
David, this is the last question on the academic category for you, and this could actually it's based on the choir, but could be relevant to a lot of the arts. Are there any activities with choir that will be happening in the fall, or is that moved to the spring?
Oh, absolutely will be happening in the fall. In fact, I just met with Grant Farmer, who's our director of choir, and also Luke Strother in the same conversation, who is our marching band director, and the chair of the music department, Paul Moulton. And the four of us chatted at great length about all of the innovative ways that they are coming up with to sustain their enterprises, because those are very difficult things, right? Marching band, how do you do marching band in a computer medium? And they're coming up with these terrific creative ideas for, in some cases, using technology to stitch together individual performances into a choral performance. So it produces as a kind of joint endeavor, but in fact, each person did their solo and then it was contributed and put together in the same time sequence. In other cases, it may involve the discernment and critique of recorded performances by great choirs or individual vocalists. In still other cases, it may involve your practicing even in a one-on-one case with the instructor, helping you develop your mastery. And they have so many additional ideas about how this can be done in a really creative fashion. I'm just pulling a few out of thin air. But yes, absolutely, the class will be offered, it will be for credit, and the faculty members are excited thinking about the ways that they can work with you in a non-traditional way. Again, this is novel for them as well. So, I think their hearts are rising in them, and they're rising to this challenge. And, and again, nothing will be as usual. And for those who enjoy novelty and, the unexpected, this will be a unique semester.
David, thank you for taking all those back-to-back rapid fire, so to speak, as rapidly as you can get a question in after your answers.
Yeah, rapid fire questions, not so rapid fire answers.
Fire answers, yeah.
But I got a shot at President. Yeah, I get to insult Jim, so I feel like on balance, it was worth it. Thank you.
Excellent.
This may be David's last day, so enjoy him while you got him.
It's been awesome, David. Thank you. Our next category, a lot of questions come in around the finances, the financial aspects of this, and so a lot of these will be answered by Brian Bava, Jen Nelson. I think one or you two should answer this first question, but we'll also have our other co-president, Doug Brigham, will weigh in on some of these, I believe. But the first question, I think Jen or Brian are most equipped. How will the choice to attend online from home affect fall payments due next week? Do we need to pay our bill in full on the 15th?
Jen, why don't I go ahead and take that? I think obviously things are a bit in flux in terms of who's going to be living on campus, who's not, canceling housing if you are living at home, canceling the meal plan if you are living at home, adding meal plans for those who are going to be on campus. So, expect that there's going to be some movement with your bill over the course of the next week. And, though August 15th is that posted date for the bill to be due, we're certainly very flexible working with families in terms of getting that bill paid. There are also payment plans if students would prefer to build that out over the course of the semester. So don't feel like, you absolutely have to have it in on the 15th. Certainly don't pay until you know what your housing situation and meal plan situation is going to look like. And then at that point, you should have a complete bill and be ready to make that payment, whether it's a first payment or paying the fall semester.
Next question, what financial credits will be given to the students? And they give the examples of the freshman experience event, the housing, the meals, etc. What financial credits will be given to the students? Again, Brian or Jen?
Wait, oh, hey, hi.
Go for it, Jen.
Yeah, so actually the next few questions I think I can get.
Okay.
When over this weekend, when we reassign housing for the fall, we will be canceling meal plans and housing. So for those of you that are concerned about, that you see that line item, but now you're thinking that the best decision for you personally is to live at home, that will come off over the weekend. So you'll be able to see by Monday, you'll have a statement that's an accurate statement. If you will be on campus, then we will reassign housing, and you'll see that line item, and then you'll also see a meal plan. And actually, we'll probably keep you on the same meal plan, but you'll see a meal plan there. So we're only canceling meal plans if you're not staying on campus. So just we want you to make sure that you can eat on campus, right, when you're on campus.
So the part of this next question I was going to ask. Is it worth staying at school at this point? That's a good question.
No, it's a great question. Well, and I think there was some chat, there was some talk in the chat about that. So part of the reason that the college moved to this online experience is academically is also so that students had some autonomy and could make decisions that are most comfortable for themselves. And we also know that there are students with compromised immune systems or students whose families have compromised immune system. And so this way, they can make a good decision for themselves personally about how to have the most robust academic experience and meaningful out-of-class experience. And that might be at home or that might be on campus. So I can tell you that on campus, as I mentioned before, we are working hard to create lots of virtual opportunities, but we're also working hard to create in-person opportunities. And I think there will be, from the very beginning, there will be small opportunities, like we're not going to have hundreds of people together. That would probably not be advisable at this point, but small opportunities for students to gather. As we reassign housing this weekend, we're working on creating cohorts. So whether it's groups on an athletic team, whether it's first-year students, whether it's perhaps people that are already friends, because that's on the application process. You can list some people that you might want to live near, and we'll put you together, and we're creating basically a household, like you might have with your family now. So this is your household for the fall. And we're going to be pretty cautious in the first couple of weeks. We want to make sure that everybody is healthy and we get into some good patterns that are healthy behaviors for how to act together in this new community. But from the very beginning, we will have ways for you to get to know each other in person as well as virtually. And then as we make it through the first couple of weeks and keep moving into the semester, we'll definitely have more opportunities for gathering in person. So I think that's a really good reason, if that sounds appealing to you. I also, though, it's important to us that you are comfortable with the decision you make.
And I could just add, Joe, I mean, Jen mentioned family, and earlier I talked about how important that the kind of the residential experience is to our personal development. And part of that is that separation from your family of origin. And this becomes your new family, and a place where you can begin to really engage and learn and affirm or challenge ways that you've thought in the past and in the future. And that's a really important developmental stage in somebody's life. And so we want to still allow that for those who feel comfortable given the relative health conditions, of course.
Thank you,
Wait,
Paul.
can I say what? I'm sorry.
Please,
can I say one more thing? I actually jotted down a note earlier and then I forgot to say it. But to Paul's point, and to David's point earlier, this is such an interesting time in history, and this is a chance to make your own way, in a way that probably you never would have imagined, a year ago. None of us would have imagined a year ago, right? So living on campus could be that for you, and I think that's worth reflecting on yourself and maybe talking with your family about and seeing if that's the right decision for you. But I know we're excited to welcome folks back to campus, and we're also excited, that it'll be mostly single rooms, which is great and provides us a really good space that can be a positive and healthy space for everyone.
Yes. Jen, I don't know if Cameron, he doesn't know that I was going to ask him a question, but I thought maybe since he's on this call, one of our current students, maybe he could reflect just on being on campus, and is it worth it being on campus?
Right. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm the ASCI treasurer this year for the student body. And for me, I think it's irreplaceable to be on campus. Granted, here at the beginning and for, however long it may be in a weird form, but getting to know peers on an interpersonal level, I think, is pretty irreplaceable. Speaking from personal experience, coming into college, I came here and my high school sweetheart went to Boise State. And just comparing at the time how she didn't know people, didn't know professors, didn't know anything near to the level that I established within a relatively short period of time, I think really, separated the experiences that we got out of it. I mean, overall, I know from speaking from my personal experience, we're doing things on the student end to try to really increase how well we can interact with each other in the early going and proceeding afterwards. I feel like for the most part, speaking with people on the football team, because I've been a part of that for a while. People who get here typically just love it, and even if they can't explain why, they don't leave. They genuinely just enjoy being here. They're from various backgrounds. And it's just really cool to learn and meet new people. Even now, I just met somebody named Christian Garcia who's now working with me. He's from Venezuela, and learning the stories is from people on any interface is just irreplaceable. I personally just love C of I extremely. So I mean, I'm biased, but you should all stick it out and come through here.
Cameron, thank you. I know you didn't expect me to throw that at you, but I appreciate your input on that. Jen, I want you to throw this one back at you. And it's, I know we've covered a little bit of the meal plans, but in the financial category, this one was a pretty specific question. How are the meal plans that were already paid for being handled? Will they be refunded, or is there an ability to use them next semester?
They would be refunded. If you're not living on campus, we would just take it off of your bill and it would be refunded.
Okay.
Or I guess that's what I imagine, or that's how I imagined it would work. I don't know anything different than that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the simple truth on that one. And I just wanted to mention that since it was a very specific question. Another question on the financial side for whoever wants to weigh in on this, Brian or Doug. What are we being charged for still? What expenses will be dropped off our bill?
Hey Joe, this is Doug. I'm not sure I fully track the question, and I'll refer back to what Jen answered here a little bit earlier, and Brian as well. That I think if they're referencing, if they've changed their situation, i.e., they originally planned to live on campus and now they're going to live off campus, they'll get changed for that. Same with Jen's last answer on the meal plan. So I think that's what they're referencing, and that would be the answer. They'll get charged for whatever they're participating in or where they're living and room and board situation is.
Doug, thank you for weighing in on that. And let's see, this last one was pretty specific as well. Will we be later reimbursed the extra money paid to our account, or will it be kept in our accounts as credit? I think we've answered that would be reimbursed for those that have already been paid in. Brian, I did want to go back to you for something that wasn't on here, but I think is a point of clarification that we should mention, that if there is a change in status of somebody who was going to be living on campus and is now there, some of their need-based scholarships could change. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So, we base all of our scholarships, and especially need-based scholarship, off of the family's need and the cost of attendance. And when you make that decision to live off campus, your cost of attendance would be reduced. So that could factor into a reduction of your need-based aid, your College of Idaho need-based scholarship. And we'll be working with families. Counselors will be reaching out to families as well to talk through that process.
Great. Brian, thank you for adding that. Our next category, and it's our last category actually, is talking about the residence life, the student life aspect, where Jen and Paul will certainly have several of these answers. First question is, what would the housing option look like for a freshman who decides to live on campus?
So it's predominantly single rooms, like I said, or really mostly single rooms. So all of our rooms, we will have single occupancy, but you'll still be sharing a bathroom with other people on the floor. Although we've taken lots of precautions to make sure that there's physical distancing and we're having extra sanitizing happen. And you'll have an RA on your floor, and that person will plan programs. So they'll have a floor meeting. They'll check in with you every day on Teams. They'll plan programs and plan ways for you to get to know the rest of your floor. And we'll be doing, especially while the weather's nice, lots of outdoor activities. So you'll have time to be in person also do activities in person outside. And then as we move through the phases, as hopefully, things go well, we move through the phases, we'll start having opportunities for more gatherings, maybe with the whole floor or with other floors even, and a chance to get to know other students on campus.
Great, Jen. Thank you. Next question, will housing have further intakes as the phases improve? So we have a phase program, or will there only be one initial intake into residences for the whole fall semester? This person asked this, had a little note on that. I really like this. I'm on the soccer team, and when that starts, I want to be on campus, but there's no need for me to take up a room initially, as soccer isn't being played until later. So that was very conscientious.
That's understandable. And I think, yeah, we have a couple other questions that are similar to this. So even if we move to a different phase where maybe that we are allowing more in-person activities and maybe even some courses have a little bit of an in-person element, there's still going to be the entire virtual element for those people living off campus. And in respect to housing in general, or specifically in housing, the answer is it depends, which isn't a great answer, but it really depends on how many rooms are full right now, at the end of this weekend when we assign everyone housing. Because if we're really full, we won't have space for someone to move on in the middle of the term. So I definitely wouldn't want anyone to count on that or to think that that was their plan. They should plan to be on campus now. Should an opportunity arise and we have some vacancies, I think on a case-by-case basis, we could work with students on that, definitely.
Okay.
Bring people back on campus. Yeah.
Yes, and your answer answers the next couple of questions as well, in regards to when people can move in if we're changing between phases, and it really is dependent on what happens by how many people are going to be moving on initially here and how much space that we do have. Here's an interesting question. What do you recommend as other options for residents? Could we be moving in during the spring if there is space, and are there off-campus options even?
So I am very hopeful. I've expressed this to lots of students that in spring, we will start the spring with kind of maybe reverting back to bringing a lot of more students on campus, but we just don't really know. So I don't want to guarantee anything that's 6 months away right now. That seems like a long time away to plan in this world. But I'm very, very hopeful that when spring comes, if we are headed forward, that we will bring other students back on campus. Lots of students. So in terms of other options for residents, I know that there are some students that have looked into rentals in the area. And so that's, that's a potential. You could possibly find something. Honestly, of course, I'm the director of residence life, so I'm kind of now I'm like David here, where you can see I maybe have you can tell what my particular bent is here. But of course, I would rather that you're on campus because you make so many friends this way. When you're on campus, you really will get to know other folks here and make a lot of friends, and you'll really kind of cement a relationship with others in your cohort group, and that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that really survives even when you're physically distancing and wearing masks and things like that. That is something that is quite valuable. Question: what will clubs and sororities look like this fall, especially since we start in phase 2?
I can tackle that if you want, Jen. It'll basically resemble everything else that's going on campus. So the expectations for our fraternities and sororities will be that they align with the phases. So in the first couple of weeks, really there will be very limited activity. And if we progress into phases, then they'll be able to progress in terms of what they can do as well. So it'll align with our phases.
Additional question in that vein: what will it be like to have a dorm cohort?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I think we haven't really done it this way before, but it's pretty exciting, actually. I think you'll have like 10 to 12 people at most, and maybe less than that you will gradually get to know. And maybe a couple of those people you'll get to know really well. And so those are the people that will be kind of your primary social structure for the semester, which I think is an exciting idea.
Another question for residence life. Is it still recommended for first-year student athletes to live on campus?
So precisely because you will make good friends and cement strong relationships with others, we are prioritizing first-year students even on campus, but then also athletes who will be using campus facilities, like working out together and using some other facilities. And it looks like Paul wants to say something too about that.
Yeah, I would just add, so we refer to it in our phases as cohorts, right? So athletic teams would be a cohort that are being prioritized potentially because they might need access to facilities. But that also includes our earlier question about choir and potentially theater, whatever other groups, official college-sponsored cohort type of groups, they fall into that priority as well.
This question along the same vein came in along the chat. There's let's see, if freshmen who don't live on campus in the fall, will they be guaranteed on campus in the spring if space allows?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, guarantee. Our capacity is such that it should not be a problem if we're back to full capacity in the spring. I cannot see any reason why a first-year student would not have access to campus. As a matter of fact, what we're really doing right now is temporarily suspending our residency requirement. So the college has a 3-year residency requirement. So come spring, if conditions warrant, we'll just be reverting back to our residency requirement, which means with some exceptions, our first freshmen, sophomores, and juniors are expected to live on campus.
Another question that came in via the chat: if we do decide to live on campus, would we be allowed to visit our families on the weekends? Good question.
Yeah, so I said yes to that, although we do really want people to think carefully and limit travel on and off campus. And if you are visiting family, please, wear your masks, keep the 6 feet, keep the precautions, just as you'd be doing on campus, just to keep everybody safe.
Another question in regards to the opportunities for students to make friends and get to know each other. And Jen, I think you're working on a bunch of these. Will there be virtual opportunities for students to get to know each other, even if they decide to stay at home for the semester?
Yes, there will be. So we're also, we have for the first time ever off-campus RAs this year. So we'll have some RAs that are helping to connect students off campus, as well as there's many other, many student organizations and many student leadership positions that will also be organizing virtual activities. But those RAs will have a list of students and they'll check in with them, and they'll also organize activities for them that are virtual. Virtual dance party.
And I know our student government, as Jen alluded to, they're also very cognizant of the need to engage both the on and off campus residents.
Great answers. I want to just give a shout out to a bunch of the folks who are from our staff and who are answering questions on the chat as well. So thank you for stepping in there. There is a question here that that I don't know that was answered. With COVID, would we have to sign waivers for anything like the Boise schools is doing for athletes? With the COVID-19, would we have to sign waivers for anything like the Boise schools is doing for athletes?
Not a waiver. What we have done, other than what we might already have in terms of certain activities, but in COVID specific, we do have some language around acknowledgement of risks, and that will be embedded into the residence life sections of our student handbook and will be disseminated. And so we want people to be informed. That's what's most important. So when you're making a decision to live on campus, we just want you to be informed as you're doing that.
I just chime in, this is Jim, that it will be no different for athletes. If you remember, we've moved all fall athletics. The difference between the Boise schools and us is we are not going to have competition. We will bring back practices as as conditions permit. But there will be no competition this fall. So a little bit different than what their situation is in the Boise schools, as I understand it now. They are returning to competition.
Great. Thank you for adding that in there, Jim. We are at 7:05, so we are 5 minutes past where we wanted to keep this. So I do want to respect people's time. And I will mention that we did get through all the submitted questions we have. I think most of the questions that have been asked online on the chat have also been answered. If you have additional questions, I would suggest taking a look at our FAQ, our frequently asked questions, but also you can see we have almost the entire leadership team is on this video chat. Everyone is very approachable. Our email addresses are on the website. We would just encourage you to just, if you didn't have a question answered, to please just re-engage and ask it to us, and we're happy to help out in any way that we can. Again, thank you all for taking the time to join us on Teams here. Virtually, all the students, all the parents, again, I appreciate all the staff, faculty, and current students who have joined us as well to give your perspectives. We certainly hope that the next couple of weeks go very, very smoothly, and we see a lot of you on campus. We'll see a lot of you virtually, and just thank you again for joining us for this town hall chat. I think we'll call it good. And again, this has been recorded, and we will be putting it online on our YouTube channel if you missed something during the chat. All right. Thank you, everybody. Go Yotes.
Thanks.